So on the class itself, I went with a Mountaintop, Gnawing Hunger, and Anarchy. The Gnawing Hunger is actually set up really well. You've got Rampage and Overflow. Overflow on this weapon means that you can actually get up to 96 in the mag, which is insane. You end up being able to clean up all the Scions and adds really, really easily, which is really useful, especially for when all the Scions are multiplying. The perk itself, you want to go with Taken Spec. I did just show you one with Targeting Adjuster, but I was messing around with it in PvP, and I run Controller in PvP. So yeah, you want to go Taken Spec because that will give you the damage buff against adds. Again, Mountaintop, you want to go Taken Spec. When you go to Cube Room, what I did was switch to Wendigo and use the blinding effect, which will allow you to stun the knights or the adds as soon as they spawn in. And then I also changed to Risk Runner, which cleans up those adds again really, really well. Use Mountaintop for the Hobgoblins, but use Risk Runner for the adds, and you avoid blowing yourself up, and you also give out a significant amount of damage because the Superconductor kicks in as the adds use Arc Energy. On the armor itself, I went with a Major Resist, double Grenade Launcher Ammo Finder to stack it, as well as the Taken Barrier. On the grips, what you can do is run Minor Resist, as well as Fast Ball and a normal Grenade Launcher Loader. That is an option for you, but what I did instead is I'm comfortable with my grenades, so I instead went with an Enhanced Grenade Launcher Loader. I felt this made a massive difference in terms of getting out Anarchy shots and getting out Mountaintop shots, and was really, really useful. High Energy Fire was a dubious one. I found this really useful because I would make sure that I was charged with light, and then it would give me that bonus damage. But some people were saying, you know, remove that and throw in Fastball instead or something like that. These are options for you. You can obviously set this up however you want, but this was how I looked going into the final encounter. The 6th Coyote, I used 6th instead of Dragon Shadow. I feel like Dragon Shadow is the best exotic for hunters in PvE. However, when you're doing solo flawlesses, it is imperative with this strategy that you're going to use that second dodge, and I'll show you why in a second. But I used double Grenade Launcher reserves here, and it just meant I had a ridiculous amount of ammo, as well as a Major Resist. Boots, I went Minor Resist, double Grenade Launch Scavenger, again just stacking all of that ammo that I can, as well as taking charge. So this is where I become charged with light by picking up orbs. And what I will say is that Wendigo allows you to pick up orbs even when you're full on your super. So then you proc this over and over and over again, and then you're proccing the High Energy Fire for the extra damage. It just makes that cube room considerably easier when you start to put this combo together. And on the cloak, we have Concussive Dampener, which is absolutely huge for dealing with those knights because the fire that they spit out is actually an AoE, so that's what you're reducing the damage from. If you ever land in that stuff, it will kick your ass, so make sure you've got this on. This is huge. So that's 2 Major Resist mods, 2 Minor Resist mods, and then a Concussive Dampener mod in your primary slots. Recuperation, you're picking up health each time you walk over an orb of light. If you've got your Wendigo on, this means you're continuing to pick up health even when you have a full super. And you will be producing a lot of orbs because you're going to masterwork your weapons before you go in. And that's going to be incredibly useful when you're dealing with multiple Scions. For example, you're guaranteed to spit out a few orbs that you can then pick up for health. Obviously, Oppressive Darkness, absolutely vital here. You want to make sure that you've got that on it. It lets you deal out so much more damage to bosses. And lastly is Empowered Finish. Now, I stopped using this after a bit, but it is useful. Basically, I wanted to just keep making sure that my super was topping up, but it is useful. Become charged with light by finishing a combatant, consuming 1/10 of your super energy. Again, if you finish an enemy and then you're only using up 1/10 of your super, and you're getting that extra damage, and you'll probably proc your super back in by the time you've used up the High Energy Fire. So this was the build that I went with overall. I did not optimize my stats. I would say if you're going to optimize your stats, definitely go with Recovery, Resilience, and then try and get it into your Discipline and Strength, because you really want to just make sure you've got the grenade and the melee ticking over. I wouldn't worry too much about mobility. This encounter isn't really focused that much on mobility. You want to take it nice and easy. Resilience and Recovery for obvious reasons, but yes, Discipline and Strength, the super will tick up all by itself. As for strategy, the first room is obviously really easy. Just don't use your Mountaintop anywhere near the Thrall. Make sure you use your AR to clean up the Thrall, because otherwise you risk them teleporting in front of you just as you pull the trigger and blowing yourself up. It's a very small risk, but it's just not worth taking. Simply put a grenade in front of you whilst you're mountaintop in the nights, or clean up using your gnawing hunger. Really easy. Then go up the stairs, which is a task in itself, because for some reason during this area you can't jump very well, even though you're able to summon powers of solar and lightning and time and space. Apparently a couple of flights of stairs are your biggest enemy, so yeah, get up there, and then you come to Boopy Boss. So, not the official technical name for this, but it's definitely what we came up with during our stream. When you do the Boopy room, at first the ads will spawn in. They always spawn in at the same place. So if you can make sure you're in the right position, then one mountaintop to the center of the group will clean up the entire group of scions before they've had a chance to duplicate. But what I would do otherwise is focus on cleaning the ads up first. Don't worry about anything else. Just envisage yourself, keep moving around, and eventually what will happen is the ads will start to ball together naturally, and then you can just mountaintop once and clean up an entire group really easily. You want to weaken the knights at every opportunity, so don't kill them, but just get them so that they're very low on health. This means that if you need light, for example, and you don't have much space on the map at the present time, which is light, you can easily slide in, clean up the knight, and slide back out. It just makes it super convenient for you, instead of having to like try and force yourself into a position for a longer period of time to kill those knights. You want to abuse the invis mechanic here, so you want to constantly have a smoke available to you. Don't forget you can get it through damage ticks from a grenade, or whilst invisible roll near ads. You can also stand behind a lot of the walls, and if there's an enemy on the other side of the wall, roll into the wall in front of you and you'll get your smoke. You want to constantly have one available to you, and be running through cycling your invis and dodge mechanic. This is where you're going to learn how to use it in the rest of the encounter anyway, so it's good to put in the time to figure it out here. When you go to pick up the moats, you got to dunk them. So make sure that when you're about to pick up the last couple, you turn yourself invisible first, because you won't be able to do anything here. You'll have no weapons. You'll only be able to jump and pop the moat energy. So therefore you want to make sure you're invisible when you do this, and then jump up to the top, and then envis yourself coming back down as well, because otherwise you risk landing in an absolute hellstorm. So one of the things that I would do is go invisible, shade step right next to the enemy, pick up the moats, and then I had the invisibility to land on the plate, explode, and then another smoke for on the way down. It's just a really safe way of getting about, avoids you getting booped off. You want to use strafe jump on your hunter here. It's up to you what jumps you use elsewhere. I personally prefer triple jump elsewhere, but here you want to use strafe jump, because if you do get booped, then you can point in the opposite direction. It will cancel all of your momentum. So if you get booped and you're heading left, you can point right and it will immediately cancel that momentum. Doesn't work like that on the other jumps. You still have that left momentum, so you'll still get thrown off the map. In the damage phase, you want to throw your void grenade. So I used a vortex for the oppressive darkness and the damage buff. You then want to stick 2 or 3 anarchy, it's up to you, and then mountaintop. Once the grenade buff wears off, that's when you drop the tether. Now, people will debate back and forth about which one to go with first, whether it's the tether or the grenade. I personally prefer the tether to come second, because around that time, you're going to start to get the goblins to spawn in that use their immunes and protects. And if you've got the tether, what you can do is tether the boss as well as around the boss, and then anarchy as well, which will clean up a lot of the goblins and make it so that you can do more damage to the boss because he's not being made immune, but also then make the start of the next phase easier to handle. Remember, at all times when you're in the damage phase, it is far more important to just survive than it is to do damage. If playing the safe route means that you have to do an extra wave, just take it. If it means you're doing 3 instead of 2, that's fine. You're doing a solo flawless. It's not about speed here. It's purely about survival. When you come to dunes, this one's really easy and you can get through this super quick. You can avoid pretty much every enemy on the map. What you need to do is make sure that all your charges are together. Pull out your anarchy, go invisible, slide in, pop a 1, make sure it is 1 anarchy bolt onto the center of the blight, and then roll out. You'll be near ads because ads are stood near these things, and then smoke yourself and just rinse and repeat between the 3 different blights, and then jump up for the little white ball. I forget what it's called, but that which then teleports to the next one. Whilst you're invisible, make sure you're using your extra shade step that is there available to you to roll and pick up another smoke. If your timing is right here, you don't have to fight a single enemy because of your Heart of the Pack buff. If you find that you're struggling for a smoke at any point, then use a grenade to get the damage ticks on like a phalanx or something like that, or maybe even a blight. But if you do find, for whatever reason, that you're really struggling, you don't have the invis, do not run in amongst everyone, back off. The thrall will come to you, you'll get kills that way, you can get your grenade damage ticks, whatever, and reset yourself. Again, it's not about pace, it's about survival. In Cube Room, you want to use Risk Runner to clean up the ads, and Wendigo to stun any knights or ads that spawn. The way I would do this, and it's very quick in my opinion, was clean up the ads, immediately mounting top 2 hobgoblins, and then Wendigo the knights. The Wendigo will leave them stunned for a couple of seconds, so say you're in a room where you need light and there's only a tiny portion of light, you can drag them over there, Wendigo them so they're stunned, they're not moving very far, very fast, and you're not in any danger, and then you can just mount and top them easily near or at a distance. Make sure that every single room you go into, you immediately look for where the light is, so you know whether you're looking for light or dark, or it's a double, for example. And make sure you also check where the hobgoblins have spawned up, because it makes a massive difference knowing what walls to put on what side of you when you're positioning yourself for these fights, depending on where the hobgoblins are. The hobgoblins have true aim installed, I swear, they're absolutely insane. You want to stay as far away from them as possible until you have to engage them. Rainbow Road is quite simple. Walk the entire thing, go down the mid plates, take your time, make sure your jumps stick. The Rainbow Road is very buggy, so one of the things that I noticed is that sometimes it would bug my jump. I'm on a hunter, so sometimes it would cause me to use up one of my extra jumps. That's why I was on triple jumps, so then I had another one just in case. Also, it doesn't seem to mantle very well. I had several instances where I'd land on the plate and then it would think I'd not landed on the plate, or I would miss the plate, but then it thought I'd landed and would then bounce me off, and a couple of different things. Always just go nice and slow, use your triple jump, and make sure you land as close to the center of the plates as you can. Yeah, as said, this is really buggy. Mountaintop any ads you can from whatever distance you can, and just take your time. As for boss room, broken this down into 2 parts, one being boss, one being plate room. In the boss room, immediately pay attention to the colors that you're going to need. It is very rare, I think it's like a 1 in 8 chance, or maybe even less, but you can get 3 darks or 3 lights, and it is a complete waste of a phase for you to then go and pick up the wrong modes. Don't get me wrong, like, it's fine if it happens, because you're simply, it's again not about speed, it's about survival, but it's a big help if you know what it is that you're supposed to be doing. Clean up the ads first. With the knights, make sure that, again, when you kill them, you go invisible on picking up the motes. Again, you're going to have this ball of energy in your hand. You're not going to have any weapons available to you or any sort of defense unless you want to drop that ball of energy at any point. If you need to, then do. But it is way more important for you to turn invisible here, because there's so many dangers in these rooms. With the ogres, what you can do is, if you do not have a smoke, you can shade step as the ogre spawns in. It will give you the smoke, and then you put 1 oppressive grenade and 2 anarchy shots into the ogre. Then you can turn invisible and run away, because that will deal enough damage to the ogre to kill it. You can also do this in other ways, where you're invisible whilst the ogre is spawning in. You shade step next to the ogre in order to get your smoke back, and then do the damage. It's up to you, like, how you want to play this, but always take your time. If you find that you're not doing enough damage to kill the ogre immediately, that's fine. Do enough damage so that you can then smoke yourself, get away, come back and find him and do damage that way. One thing to be wary of is if you do quite a lot of damage, but you leave it in like the last 10% of its health, the ogre will get a charge where they become almost overloaded. They will hammer you with attacks. They will regain health. What you need to make sure that either you do some damage or all the damage. You do not want to leave them in that last 10%, otherwise they turn into absolute nightmares and you don't want to be having to deal with them. And in these boss rooms, you want to make sure that you are really spot on with your invis. Always prioritize having that smoke. Always be, if it involves taking a lot longer, then that's fine. Just keep running around, shade stepping, building up your smoke, so you'll be fine that way. And also remember, you do not need to fight the third ogre. As soon as the third set of moat energy is popped, you can run straight to the middle. I'd make sure that if there are any ads or anything, you turn yourself invisible or clean up the ads first, because you don't want to be stood on that plate getting shot. But yeah, remember, you do not need to stick around for that third ogre. Moving into plate room, and this for me was the hardest bit other than being booped off or having some kind of bug. In here, you want to, as you land from being dropped down the chute, you want to Oppressive Darkness the boss, hit them with an Anarchy and then some mountaintops, and then go left. Jump onto the second plate, because you will have a little bit of protection from the boss. Do not stand near to those little pillars that are supposed to protect you. Make sure you stand about a meter or two back and try and stay crouched if you can, because again, it's very buggy. It still catches you even if you're behind it. The only way to guarantee that you're not going to get caught by the teleportation attack is by being quite a distance from it. I think what happens is the teleportation attack has a radius, and then when it hits those pillars, it has a splash as well. I don't know if that's intended, but basically, if you are stood right behind the pillar, the splash will still catch you and teleport you away. After you've done that initial wave of damage, it is no longer about the boss. For the rest of the jumping plates, you want to just focus hobgoblins and focus staying alive. If you get time, spin and put a bit of Anarchy onto them, or a mountaintop maybe, that's fine, but prioritize the hobgoblins. What you want to do is shade step as soon as they spawn in to gain your smoke, your invis, kill the hobgoblins, and then stay ahead of the boss. What I would typically do is stay almost alongside or one plate ahead of the boss at all times, use my invis to travel between plates, and then when he teleports for the third time and is about to teleport for the fourth time, you can go invisible and just run to the back of the room. You'll have enough time to go to the back so that the entropy won't kill you, and instead you can kill the hobgoblins and then just start dealing damage. I would save your tether for that final bit of damage when you're on the end play. I would save most of your Anarchy and mountaintop ammo for then, and just try and deal as much damage as possible during that end phase. Again, do not worry about beforehand. And again, it's about survival. So if this takes you 10 waves, so be it. That's what it takes. But I found that I did it, in the end, I think I did it in 3. And before that, it was looking mostly 4 or 5. But the thing that was killing me was nothing to do with damage checks. There is no enrage phase here. I was simply falling off the plates because I was trying to prioritize boss damage over survival. And the irony is that actually, if you get to that end plate and then deal damage almost pointing back towards where you've come from, you actually get way more off because you're not having to deal with any hobgoblins or anything like that. So you do way more damage anyway. And my final bit of advice overall would just be to stay patient and persist, because I had great runs all the way through and then kept failing, whether it be to a boop that probably shouldn't have killed me but did, or I hadn't put on the right jump, or I had something really unlucky, like I accidentally mountaintopped a scion that appeared in front of me from around a corner. All these things that can happen will just happen. Like that. Unfortunately, that's just the way this is. On my final run, I actually made a lot of mistakes. I was super tired. It was like my 25th attempt, and I was really struggling. Do not worry about being perfect. Again, it is just about living, persistence, patience, and you will be fine. All the same, it is a really big challenge. From what I've heard, it's the second toughest dungeon in the game, especially to solo flawless. So I wish you guys the best of luck and enjoy it and get that really nice set of loot that comes with it and show off that emblem nice and proud. Take care, guys. All the best.